Alright, people, welcome to the Sunday night evening live stream on my left eye. Hope you're very well. Thanks a lot for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Let us know how you're doing in the chat. I'm your host, Lefty, your friendly neighbourhood political and environmental activist and also analyst and commentator. It's great to be here tonight. Thanks to those of you who've been following the weekly live streams on the Brews at 10 as well. More of those to come next week. But for this evening, more or less just got a roundup on the latest about the general election. A couple of other stories also. Updates on the situation in Palestine as well. Keeping you up to speed with that. We'll be dipping into Keith's Fondue Lounge very shortly. Just going to wait for a few people to arrive in the chat. Slightly earlier start time this week. I know that might clash with other streamers, but we'll be giving a shout out to some other channels as well. So yeah, feel free to join us in the chat. You'll need to be subscribed to do that. Just 60 seconds after you subscribe. You can post in the chat. If you're watching back on a replay, please do add a comment. Always try and get back to those as quickly as I can. Thanks a lot for comments on the content that I've released recently. Hope you've all been able to check out the episode, the video I did even, focusing on the Green Party and their campaign. Please do check that out. Wolfpet, thanks a lot for joining us in the chat. A very good evening to you too. Hope you're well this evening. And yeah, it's been quite the week, obviously. A lot more coming out. Going to be focusing a little bit on Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting. His appearance on Laura Kussenberg earlier today. Going to be kicking off with that. Then into more stories and articles. A couple of updates on the hot seats as well. And how some of the parties are doing in their campaigning. There is some positive news in terms of people turning away from the so-called main three parties. We're touching on that as well. But those are the kind of things I was hoping for in this upcoming general election anyway. So, I will start off, as always, by giving a huge thank you to all of the members on the channel. Before we go into Keith's Fondue Lounge, this is the most recent updated list. So if your name's there, thanks a lot for your continued support, as well as an extra thanks to those of you, as always, who've gifted memberships to others on the channel. That's a great way to show solidarity. Okay, into the lounge we go. Alright, don't forget, if you'd like to join that list of incredible people who support the channel, you can do so for just 99p. Thanks a lot for your continued support as always to current members. For those of you who are considering supporting the channel in that way, please do check out the perks. Exclusive content, early viewings, plus a lot more, so please do check that out. Keith's going to be coming up on tonight's live stream, of course. as well as the absolute ghoul over his right shoulder as we look at him. Peter Mandelson's thrown his hat into the ring. He's going to be getting on board with the North Islington campaign. Not too sure how well that's going to go for him, as well as Paul Mason. Regular viewers will know that that's one of the hot seats here on My Left Eye, the ones to watch. I'm pretty sure that Corbyn's going to gain that seat with a very strong majority and run Paul Mason and Peter Mandelson out of town. So, small recompense for what isn't going to be a great outcome at the next election, whatever happens, let's be honest, but there could be some signs of positivity, which I'll be looking into as well. As I said, some encouraging signs that people are seeing the Tories and Labour in the same way that I am, and many of the viewers on the channel, that they are one and the same, and no one really has a lot of faith in Starmer to make any real change. Yeah, I'm just quickly going to bring up the hot seats as well, just bear with me. For those of you who aren't familiar, we've got hot seats, some ones to watch. I'll just try and get you the list very quickly. But there are some new additions to this list as well. Those of you who've been keeping up to date with the Brews at 10 and other content will know that there have been a couple of new additions. So that's the original list, but in addition to that, we've now got Clacton as well as North Durham. So Clacton's the one where Farage is standing, hoping that he takes a walloping. And North Durham is where Luke Akehurst has been parachuted in. Quite a few of these seats are going to be examples of that, where the Labour Party have acted completely undemocratically and parachuted in NEC members, whilst booting out, in a lot of cases, previously elected candidates from the local area. In North Durham's case, Akehurst himself is from Oxford. That's nowhere near North Durham. Not a hint of a Geordie accent or even a northern accent whatsoever. And the current prediction, of course, is that Reform won't win any seats, so that shows the outcome that I'm hoping for in Clacton as well. On the night of the election itself, as I do live streams, we'll be keeping tabs on who we're hoping wins in each of those hot seats and what the outcome will be as we get the results live. There's also a couple of hot, pertinent questions as well at the moment. How many seats the Tories might lose? Would it surpass 100? Most recent record being set by Gordon Brown, of course. But it could go even further than that, some are speculating. Saw an article earlier that suggested they might be left with as little as 72 seats. Which brings me on to the other sort of hot question about this election, is whether Lib Dem will end up as the main opposition party if the Tories do lose so many seats. But contrary to what a lot of the polls are saying, we're seeing some evidence that that might not be happening. I'm going to pick through the finer points of some of that very shortly, as I said. But I think, first of all, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we're going to catch up with the latest from someone who regularly appears in the comedy clips here on the channel, Jonathan Pye. So let's just take a look at the latest from him. See you shortly, Keith. Right, that's enough fondue for now. It tastes like neoliberalism. Right, latest from Jonathan Pye, and obviously mentioned before how completely sick we are of seeing this guy on panels, and it looks like Jonathan Pye's had enough of it as well. This is the latest from him, all about the Reform Party, who, fingers crossed, won't win a single bloody seat.
The news that Reform have taken over the Tories in the polls, prompting Nigel Farage to declare, "We are now the opposition." Let's take a look. And now over to our Nigel Farage correspondent, Nigel Farage. Hello, Nigel Farage. Thank you, Nigel. Back to you, Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Nigel fucking Farage. As if my sad existence couldn't get any more cretinous. I am spending most of my days travelling around the country following a populist, Trump-filleting, flag-shagging, GB News pin-up, dog-whistling grifter in a Del Boy overcoat. Fuck my luck. After 14 years of unspeakable cruelty, greed and incompetence, I am witnessing the end of the Tory party as we know it, and I can't enjoy it because what replaces it is even worse. Nigel Farage has appointed himself the country's unofficial leader of the opposition. He's going to realign the British political right so the Conservatives are either replaced by Reform or consumed by them. It's happened already. Andrea Jenkins has got a fucking picture of him on her Conservative campaign leaflet. It's a fait accompli. 50 quid, he'll be on the opposition front bench within 6 months and Prime Minister within a decade.
Oh, I don't know. I don't normally interrupt the comedy clips, but I don't know about that, Jonathan. I don't know about that. We're hoping not.
And you know why he's doing so well? It's not unbridled opportunism. It's because he's a man of the people. Working man's, ordinary bloke, privately educated, former commodity trader with normal people's best interests at heart. Get rid of the NHS in favour of the American insurance-based system. Salt of the earth, trustworthy, expensive scandals and spending millions of UK taxpayers' money paying his family members, staff, kind of just ordinary bloke, down the pub, banks at Coots, normal, everyday man of the people. And he's not racist, he just says it how it is, close ties with the BNP, called Enoch Powell his political hero. It's just lazy to call Nigel Farage racist. Yes, he's dabbled. As a youth at sixth form, he was a fervent National Front supporter and vocal anti-Semite. And, it is well documented that as a student, he'd occasionally march through the town singing Hitler youth songs. True story. But, who didn't in their youth do a little bit of goose stepping? I mean, that's not racist. It's not actually racist to be a racist, is it? He wants to stop immigration. Okay, nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people want to stop immigration. How's he going to do it? What's the policy? Well, he wants net migration to be at 0. Well, I want a bigger dick. And it's not a policy, is it? Dare to ask him how he would achieve 0 net migration, he looks at you like you've just shat yourself. Dare to point out we're all £2,000 worse off because of Brexit, he just rolls his eyes. Boring. Any unwelcome facts are dismissed as a giant left-wing Remainer plot. The last election was all about getting Brexit done and nothing else. The oven-ready, pop it in the microwave whilst hiding in a fridge election. This time round, nothing. Nothing from the Tories, because the Brexit they delivered was dog shit. Nothing from Labour, because they don't want to kind of alienate the people that voted for the dog shit by mentioning that it was dog shit, and hardly a squeak from Farage because he was the poster boy for the dog shit. And we now know it was dog shit because nothing has changed. The rich have got richer, the poor have got poorer, and control of immigration has all but collapsed. And of course, the promise of taking back control went way beyond just control of our borders. It was a way for those who were left behind to express their anger at a ruling and political class that have abandoned the working class for decades. But Brexit didn't solve any problems, it just exposed them. It exposed that what real people need is real policies that meet real people's urgent needs. Money in your pocket and food on your table. And we've had none of it. And populism thrives in a vacuum. It masks political failure by blaming others. A bit of it's immigrants' fault over here, and high court judges are enemies of the people over there, and it's going to resonate with people who can't afford to feed their fucking children. If I was standing in this election and was given 90 minutes on primetime telly to promise the world whilst postulating out policy positions and ideas that don't stand up to any scrutiny, zero net migration, blowjobs and lollipops on the now insurance-based NHS and free anal bleaching for the over 75s, I'd be doing all right in the polls as well. That's how populism works. Promising the world without fear you'll ever have to deliver. He is a dangerous grifter. He is Liz Truss in human form. There's only one seat I'm hoping the Tories win. Yeah, if I lived in Clacton, I would tactically vote the Tories in. Oh, God. Oh, I just did a bit sick in my own mouth. Oh, God. Yeah. Well, bad news for Rishi Sunak, good news for Reform and possibly Labour. Splitting the right-wing vote is an early Christmas present for Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Do check him out live if he's going to be in your area as well. Jonathan Pye. I don't think he has much to worry about. They're not going to be the main opposition by any chance. Farage is trying to, big themselves up along with Richard Tice, but no, it's not going to happen at the moment. I am firmly sticking by my early prediction that Reform won't win any seats. They might push the Tories close in a few of them, but no. As Jonathan Pye was describing there's a complete lack of variety from the so-called mainstream parties as well. Just quickly before I dive into what Wes Streeting had to say about Labour's manifesto, talk a lot about where the parties lie on the political spectrum here on the channel. So there's been a new graph released of the full four-way political spectrum, and this just really sort of sums up, well, very close to how I visualise it myself, and it's kind of confirmed in this graphic at the moment. Hope you can see that okay. Might just make that a bit bigger. But this really sums it up. So, where to begin? Obviously, the Tories are going to be out there on the right, as you can see, the dark blue dot furthest to the top right of right-wing authoritarian. Very close to Reform UK, of course. They're going to be squabbling over a few seats, as I said, but look how firmly into the right-wing camp Labour are. Further to the right than the Liberal Democrats, it appears at the moment. Certainly far, far, far from the Democratic Socialist roots as well. And this just sums it up. So in England, you only have the Workers' Party of Great Britain and the Green Party. You've also got SNP there on the left in Scotland, of course. But this sums it up. What a sorry state it is. Let us know what you think about that in the chat as well. Just wanted to share that with you briefly. Yeah, perhaps arguably Labour should be even further to the right on that. Who knows? So they're all there, lumped together. There's no way I can bring myself to vote for any of those three, of course. Right, let's just quickly dive into some articles and clips then. Wesley. He's been out and about on the news rounds, hasn't he? Apparently, he's even admitting that Labour are under-ambitious in the social care policy. There's been a lot of back and forth about whether Labour would raise taxes as well, and during the manifesto launch, there was this kind of, read my lips, no new taxes moment. I'll be having a look at some of the launch and talking a bit more about Labour's pretty uninspiring, tame, lame manifesto. Could think of a few more adjectives as well. But I'm hoping that this video stays monetised. And a lot of what they sort of putting all their eggs in one basket on is a sort of guarantee for economic growth, which they're not going to say how that's going to happen, but they're also sticking with this no tax rise, which obviously would mean no investment strategy, which for a supposed democratic socialist party, just shouldn't really fly. Let's have a listen.
I make no bones about the fact, of course, on social care, I would have wanted the manifesto to be more ambitious, but to get policies in the manifesto, you had to run the gauntlet of answering two fundamental questions. Can we keep this promise? Can the country afford this promise? And if the answer to either of those questions was no, it's not in the manifesto. And that is why...
Well, they've gone back on everything that they've ever said. From Keir Starmer's original 10 pledges when he became leader, right the way through many other policies, including one of the big ones, the £28 billion Green Pledge. Just how are we not expected to see more of the same of that when that's all that's happened? And they certainly didn't apply those conditions to previous policies. And again, that's just them trying to say that there's no money left, using the same excuses as the Tories. But completely uninspired in terms of public investment. They're not trying to stick the neck out too far. Their only approach at the moment seems to be, we're not Jeremy Corbyn. That's all that they've got to say for themselves.
When people pick up Labour's manifesto as they're deciding how to vote, they should know that they can trust every single policy in there that would offer real change for our country. And of course, once we get the economy growing, which is the central starting point of a Labour government, if we win the next year.
And there you go, just this, they're going to magically turn the economy round. I think that Kussenberg actually pulls him up on this in this little clip as well. But they're taking a huge gamble there. It's no good. It's no good. This isn't going to get people out rushing to vote for Labour.
General election, we will have more available to either invest in our public services or put back into people's pockets. Because if the economy had grown under this government at the same rate it grew under the last Labour government, there would be tens of billions of pounds available to either invest in our public services or to put back in people's pockets.
And that is what you hope will happen if you win, but there is nothing certain about growth. And of course, the last Labour government didn't have to deal with a pandemic and an energy shock. But let's stick on pay.
Or this trust and the catastrophic mini-budget. And
they're probably both going to make excuses for the Tories as well and back up excuses that the Tories have been using. Kussenberg, of course, had to throw in a 2 cents with that one. Labour didn't have to deal with the pandemic. They didn't have to deal with this energy crisis as well, which I can't believe Kussenberg still goes along with that. Russia, it was Russia. that started this energy crisis when we only get 4% of our natural gas from them. And they, you know, she can't help herself. She can't help herself.
Going to do it all over again.
Right, right. That's all from that clip. And they've already, you know, apparently hinted that they are going to have to raise some taxes. They're all over the place. They're all over the place. And there's not a great deal in that manifesto at all. They're both just taking these snipes at one another. Let's just take a look at... Where are we? Yeah, we're going to take a look at this sort of summary of the manifesto launch. Just one sec. Yeah, I hope this is okay. I hope I don't get pulled up for the source on this. It's happened on a couple of streams and videos. I've had to make some adjustments. We'll see how this one goes anyway. Just a quick one before we dive in. Just a quick meme. Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. Titanic. Two fucks trying to sink one country.
Please welcome to the stage, leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer.
No rabbits, no risks. Labour's manifesto launch was a continuation of a campaign strategy to reduce the size of the target for Tory attacks. And Keir Starmer's pledge not to raise taxes on working families was centre stage.
So let me spell it out. We will not raise income tax.
See the sleeves there? Sleeves rolled up. That's all you're gonna see. He's saying that he's going to bring change, but there you see, next to Sunak and Cameron.
We will not raise national insurance. We will not raise VAT. That is a manifesto commitment. There may be some people here today who say...
It's a weak crowd, isn't it, as well? This is pure hubris, is all it is, really, this launch. The expectation from them that they'll leap and bound into government just because of a lack of popularity where the Tories are concerned.
Where's the surprise? Where's the rabbit out of the hat? To which I say, if you want politics as pantomime, I hear Clapton is nice this time of year.
The only surprise was a climate change protester.
My generation is being let down by the...
His response now well practised.
Yeah, well, good for whoever that protester was, of course. I'm sure regular viewers will know my feelings on those kind of disruptions. But this line, which he's used before, just shows how far from home Labour are at the moment. I don't think Keir Starmer gives two shits about the environment. That's especially one of the main things that's lacking from this very, very weak campaign, is a lack of focus on environmental issues. And he's going to throw the line out again here.
We gave up on being a party of protest 5 years ago. We want to be a party of power.
They just want power for power's sake. What can you say? What can you say?
To underline that claim, he took a swipe at the leader he used to back.
Jeremy Corbyn is not just not a Labour candidate, he's expelled from this party. That is how much change we have brought around.
What an arsehole. He's just the pits of the world, isn't he?
He committed to £8 billion worth of tax rises on well-trailed policies like VAT on school fees, closing non-dom loopholes, redirected to helping cut NHS queues and funding teachers.
For everybody who's got the document, is in the last few pages about...
You can bet your bottom dollar that if they are elected, they'll turn around and use the same excuse as the Tories for not bringing in those policies. There's no doubt about that in my mind whatsoever. Good evening, Mithril. Thanks a lot for joining us in the chat this evening. Have you had a good week? Hope you've been well. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Sunday night live stream. Just going through the Labour manifesto launch. He is unutterably awful. I find it very difficult to try and stay composed on the streams sometimes.
Page 109. Rachel is demonstrating the page that says every...
There's all these... Oh, look at the grins and just this reeks of Tory.
Policy is fully costed and fully funded.
Oh, God. They think, you know... They're acting like they're about to go on the holidays or something together. They're going to get a shock. They're going to get a shock in some of the hot seats that I've mentioned, of course. But just look at the state of it.
She's got it open. She wrote every word of it.
But there's no guaranteed money for great swathes of the public sector, which Labour says are in a ruinous state. Keir Starmer says they'll get the money when there's economic growth. He was asked, what if the growth doesn't turn up?
This manifesto is a total rejection of that defeatist approach, that the only levers are tax.
He thinks it's going to happen by magic.
It's a total rejection of that. It's a plan for growth.
It's deluded.
There's no magic wand.
It's delusional.
You don't get growth without a plan, and I have absolute confidence in the plan for growth that we're putting before the country. And I will not accept...
Oh, God, just change and growth. This is just like one word. That's all he's got. Change, growth. It's coma-inducing stuff, isn't it?
The defeatism that says all that we can hope for in this country is to flatline. That is the absolute opposite of the hope that we inject through this manifesto.
Well, I don't think it's defeatist to say that growth might not happen, because growth might not happen. A wise government plans, it hopes for the best, but plans for things that aren't the best.
He's got less hope than he's got charisma. He's definitely lacking in that department. Believe me.
Much the biggest promises in the manifesto are the negative ones. No increases in a whole range of taxes, no increase in debt over Parliament. But what we heard very little about was how Labour would actually deal with what they set out as a big range of problems with the public services, with the welfare system. But there's no promises effectively for any additional spending on that, and there's no sense of whether they would raise any significant additional money from increasing taxes.
Any attempt to find out if there are secret tax plans beyond the self-denying pledges met with rigid message discipline here in Manchester.
You're very clear you think the tax burden on working people is as high as it could possibly be, maybe too high. Is the tax burden on unearned income too high, or is there a bit of headroom?
I want taxes to come down. The tax burden is at its highest level in 70 years. That's why this manifesto focuses on how we can grow the economy.
Rishi Sunak, attending a G7 summit of leaders in Italy, got a warm welcome from the host, Italy's far-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. The Tories called Labour's a tax trap manifesto.
Bloody
said
hell.
The party, if elected, would go much further than the small tax rises listed today. One of the warm-up speeches before Keir Starmer spoke today was delivered by a late convert from the Conservatives, the boss of Iceland Stores.
You said the grim years of conservatism are over. It's not long since you were trying to be a candidate.
Well, yeah.
Last year?
Certainly had
what happened? What changed?
A bit of an epiphany that the Tories were moving away.
Is that what happened, or
from
is it
standards
just
and principles?
sour grapes because they wouldn't give you a seat?
No. Well, they definitely didn't want me. That's for sure.
I watched you there. You weren't clapping when he tried to get everyone clapping against Jeremy Corbyn. Did that stick in the throat a bit?
My hands are sore, the amount of clapping I've done.
Cast your memory back a long way to '97.
Okay.
There was a lot more hope then, wasn't there?
It was, because the truth is, whatever you thought about the Thatcher period and the John Major period,
You loved it. He was, yeah. He declared his admiration for along with Starmer as well. What is he on about?
Things that are dramatically changed, and some for the better.
After the manifesto launch, I spoke to Keir Starmer on his battle bus and put to him the
Yeah, no worries, me thrill. If you got to go to your other stream, take care. Hope you're very well. I'll be catching up with you soon. Have a good evening.
Institute for Fiscal Studies criticism that he wasn't telling us what he'd do about the public sector.
These elements of the public realm, which you've been criticising for ages, you think have been utterly neglected, you think are like a sort of boiler in the attic that's about to explode, you're not telling us, you're not being candid about what you're going to spend on them to turn them round. Because it's that or austerity cuts, and you say you don't want to do that.
Well, that is all he's going to do. It's as clear as day. That's what he's going to be dancing around for the next 5 years if he gets elected. It won't take long until, you know, a lot of people might hold their nose and vote for Labour in the election, and if they elected straight in without a hung parliament, if they get a majority, very soon it's going to become apparent that people really shouldn't have put the faith in this guy.
So far in this election campaign, we've had lots of discussion about increasing tax or decreasing spending. I reject the idea that they are the only two things a government can do. We can build.
It is basic economic sense, Starmer. He's relying on what he thinks has been some invisible third option, some unseen thing. But what he pretty much is telling you that he's hoping again that it's going to happen by magic.
And grow our economy, which will give us the yield that we need for our public services.
But you know that growth won't come immediately.
Well, just hear me out.
Even if it all works, it won't come immediately.
If we'd had growth in the last 14 years at the same rate as the last Labour government, we'd have tens of billions of pounds to invest in our public services without raising a single tax. That is the failure of the last 14 years.
Absolutely.
But these steps, in terms of how quickly we can do this, we've already had discussions, as you would imagine, with the investors that we want to partner with to put in place the projects we need. They say to me that what's held them back so far is the instability in our economy.
Absolutely.
So we'll stabilise the economy.
You might start the process, but you won't get that growth straight away. You will have to either inflict some very deep cuts, as currently outlined in the government's plans, or you're going to have to.
These are better questions. You get a generally, for politics at least, definitely a better set of questions on Channel 4 than you would with the Beeb generally, especially people like Cussenberg. And they're not just going to get behind Labour for the sake of it. The public need answers to these questions.
Raise taxes beyond the ones you're talking about not touching.
Look, I'm rejecting this proposition that this country can't do any better than it's done for the last 14 years.
I heard what you said in the press conference just now. You were asked what happens if, say, growth gets knocked off course, and you said that's defeated.
He's just got his head in the sand.
That sounded Maoist.
He's got his fingers in his ears.
Can we change our
He's being completely ignorant to the reality of the situation, of the state of the economy, and very shady and sketchy on his goals and how he's going to get there.
But I do reject, I totally reject the proposition that the last 14 years have been pretty awful.
He only ever takes 3 or 4 sentences into an interview. That's all he's ever armed with. He He can't ad lib, he can't riff during an interview. He's just so robotically disciplined in the very short range of things that he can say.
Can I ask you a separate question, because I'm getting lots of signals from over your shoulder.
Unlike the Tory Party manifesto, these aren't just half-thought-through policies thrown on the table at the last minute. We've been working on these for 4 years with the partners that are going, we hope, to deliver them with us. I'm utterly confident in them, and I utterly reject the proposition that we cannot do better than we've done in the last 14 years.
You're quite clear that the burden of taxation on families, on people, on working families,
people.
You say that's too high. It's already too high.
Yes.
You don't want it to go any higher. What about the burden of taxes on unearned income? Too high? Bit of headroom? You've already made a bit of an inroad on it today.
Well, we've already announced, pre-announced,
but
the tax rises we will make.
Is there more headroom? Is that where the whole election's been a bit like a game of sort of 20 questions, really, hasn't it? You're a tax rise, and we're all trying to guess what you are, and you're saying you keep ruling some of them out, and we're trying to work out what which one is really your name, and is your name capital gains tax?
Well, we've set out exactly in relation to working people, no increase in income tax, national insurance or VAT. We've fully costed and fully funded all our plans. They do not require tax rises over and above those that we have.
But we all know that word
set
plans.
out. We've set out.
But that word plans can be part of a non-denial denial.
Plans, promises, pledges, it doesn't matter much what he does call them. He's going to go back on them anyway.
We have no planned tax increases beyond what we're telling you about. Reminds me of Tony Blair in 1997 talking about we have no plans to do tuition fees. It's a classic non-denial denial out of the sort of textbook of how to do it.
I'm a different Labour leader. I accept in the past that Labour leaders and other leaders have thought...
You're going to really do this?
Thought there were only two levers. One is tax and the other is spend.
You mean it? There's not going to be an autumn budget when you say, oh, we opened the bonnet, aghast, look at this, it's really horrible. We are actually going to have to do some tax rises.
We're going for growth.
You're not going to do that.
Our manifesto is for growth. It's a plan for growth.
Yeah, how many times is he going to say growth?
Years. We intend to turn that around.
Keir Starmer, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
God, nauseating. What can I say? The other thing he's completely ignorant over is he takes a complete lack of responsibility for what he did to Labour and their chances of winning the last election. He doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to acknowledge that. He's still trying to blame Corbyn. It's pathetic. Yeah, just a bit more to get through in this article before I move on to...
Well, as we've seen, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is away from the election campaign to attend the G7 summit in Italy. But he took the time to criticise Labour's manifesto, accusing the party of asking the public to write a blank cheque.
Well, let's see what Sunak had to say. And, of course, he was in the news a few days ago, trying to make himself look ordinary and not privileged at all. Didn't even have Sky TV. Poor guy. The poor guy.
You've seen two manifestos this week, and there's a clear choice at this election. We published a manifesto that's going to cut taxes for people in this country, and the Labour manifesto that was published today made it clear that taxes are going to rise. Multiple independent sources demonstrate that the tax burden under Labour will rise to the highest levels in history.
Well, Labour retorts that its manifesto is fully costed, but as we've been hearing, it's heavily dependent on economic growth. So with me now to take a closer look at the numbers is our economics correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi. Helia.
Well, Kathy, this is a modest manifesto that hopes growth will do all the heavy lifting, as you were saying. On the one hand, it's got these big, bold, ambitious ideas on long-termism in infrastructure and industrial strategy. But on the other hand, its ideas on spending is quite piecemeal. For example, it says...
It's bollocks, you know, if you want to summarise it. Good evening, Hedy. Hope you're well this evening. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Hope you've had a good week. And, yeah, if you're going to talk to an actual fiscal expert about Labour's plans, the long and short of it is it's hogwash.
that Britain has an endemic problem with child poverty, but then its solutions are things like breakfast clubs. And while it says its manifesto is fully costed, that completely sidesteps the issue that it's chosen to inherit plans that imply huge, massive cuts to unprotected departments. But let's have a look at that manifesto, because they've added £8.5 billion of extra taxes. They want to spend £4.8 billion on things like extra nurseries.
8.6 billion is in today's, you know, in 2024, that's so under ambitious. 8.6 billion. Is that it? That's all that they're going to bring.
There's a £4.7 billion boost to capital investment, which they'll be funding through £3.5 billion of extra funding. But Cathy, all of that is teeny tiny, and I'll show you why. This is what the government spends and raises in taxation in 1 year alone. And this chart isn't even to scale, otherwise it would be going through the roof.
So take us through in a bit more detail about what Labour is saying on tax.
Well, the first problem is that they've cornered themselves by making all these promises that national insurance won't go up, income tax won't go up, VAT won't go up, and now corporation tax won't go up. There are some smaller taxes they could go after, but don't forget that Labour's not reversing the freeze.
Go for the wealthy. You go for the wealthy, but obviously Starmer's not going to do that because he wants to appease these people, obviously. Carry on with the status quo, the establishment, however you might describe it. That's where you could get a lot of revenue from. But as per so many other topics, he really doesn't want to talk about that.
On personal tax thresholds, which means in the next Parliament, as a proportion of national income, it is still the tax take going to be at record levels. In fact, it's going to be even higher. The other problem is that they've hemmed themselves to this fiscal straitjacket on borrowing, while at the same time promising no austerity. Now, that is akin to trying to balance an elephant on a hairpin.
That's such an image. Is the economic growth they need?
That's such an image. Ha 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 ha. But, I mean, no. You should be worried, you should be terrified that this man looks at least likely to be forming the next government. But he'll have to win his seat in Holborn St Pancras. Talk a little bit about the latest in that hot seat very shortly.
Actually going to turn up?
Yeah, the big hope, growth. Well, let me show you what the OBR think growth is going to be. Everyone complains that the OBR is very negative. But actually, these numbers are quite optimistic because take a look at what the independent forecasters think. Not so rosy. And the problem is that Labour want to grow at something like 2.5%. Now, it is not the same world that Labour inherited back in 1997, and that could really stymie them.
So what are the chances? Is it realistic?
Well, I'm going to show you my last chart, and this is perhaps why Labour is so keen to keep talking up the partnership with business. This is business investment. You see that first line, it crashes in the economic crisis, but then the trend line suggests after Brexit, it's going to continue to go up, except in reality, it doesn't. It just flatlines. Now, if Labour can close this gap and some other things, then happy days. If they can't, then they're going to have some horrendous choices when it comes to spending, when it comes to taxation.
And that's where you're going to hear the tough choices lay ahead. As soon as they get in, they'll harp on about so-called tough choices, which just means further austerity. And also, look what we had to inherit as well.
When it comes to borrowing.
Love your charts, Helia. Thanks very much. Well, now to Kieran in Leeds.
Thanks, Cathy. Well, the polls are all suggesting the election is Labour's to lose. But how did the party's manifesto go down with voters? Well, Rugby is one of the many Conservative-held constituencies Labour is targeting. Mark Pawsey won it in 2019 with a 13,000 vote majority. Our Claire Fallon's been finding out what people there make of what Labour have to offer.
They say elections are won and lost at the margins. But we're in the middle, geographically. in an area Labour wants and needs to win over. Talking to the voters, Keir Starmer hopes to convince with today's manifesto.
I liked it in the days when Maggie Thatcher was in charge.
For decades, the votes in this...
Oh, God. That wasn't a good start. Did you all hear that in the background just before I came in? She liked the days when Thatcher was in charge. Christ.
This area has mirrored the result of general elections, and Patricia and Bob have backed the party that's won every time. What would Labour need to...
So now they, what are they known local as some sort of seers, some sort of mystics? Is this what we're going off of, the fact that they've backed the last...
to get you to switch from voting Tory?
They've got all the figures, every party's got all the figures, lay it down in black and white and saying this is how much it's going to cost every man, woman, child in this country, and then let them decide. And that's the only way you'll get me to vote.
So actually be honest about...
Honesty.
What, taxes going up?
Yeah, what taxes are going up? Don't put any mirrors behind them. You know, it's just smoke and mirrors all the while.
Does this man realise that he's talking about the Labour Party and the Tories, I guess, as well? Probably pretty unaware of their reputation where that's concerned.
You know, just be
honesty.
Perfectly honest with the public.
Would you
That's why you vote Tory, is it?
vote for a party that said they're going to put taxes up to fix things?
We all want things, and if taxes have to go up, they have to go up.
We haven't got a strong enough government. We haven't got a strong enough leader.
At 84, John is a lifelong Conservative voter. But this could be the year when that changes. So is your vote to be won at the moment?
At the moment, I like Nigel Farage, right? I think Nigel Farage...
Oh, no, it's out. Oh, my goodness. So these are they're all in rugby. That's where they are.
speaks the truth. With all these immigrants that's coming to the country, you know, why can't we just send them back? This is England, it's our country.
Give over.
Why do you have to listen to laws from...
It's a bloody island. We live on an island, okay? Oh.
International laws, you know. Let's run our own country as we should be running it.
In an election seen as a crossroads, to take power, Labour need to win in places they've not won since '97, or ever. And so to today's manifesto.
Well, that's not going to happen, and I think I'm just being realistic in that regard. When you actually look at it at a granular level, they're not going to be making these kind of gains. They're really not.
About powering growth, according to Keir Starmer. No tricks or surprises, pro-business. But will business back him?
It sounds like there's no rabbits out the hat. There's nothing that we didn't really...
Did you want a rabbit, though, actually?
Yeah, I think so. I think I needed a rabbit to try and pull me further that way.
Where's this rabbits out the hat thing come from as well? Why has everyone started saying that?
Something, you know, maybe we were never going to get it, something around corporation tax or incentives around investment.
In a constituency that's part industry, part thatched roofs and commuter villages. In the market town of Rugby itself, we've come to a yoga session at the Ben Partnership Community Centre. Trudy was a social worker until illness stopped her working. Her feelings towards the party she's always voted for illustrate another problem for Labour. How to get the balance between appealing to a new audience and keeping your core base of supporters.
Well, they're not. They're not. I'm gonna just leave that there, because just very quickly, pertinent to that, just want to highlight this. Both of them, apparently, and this is according to the Observer, are on course for the lowest vote share since 1945. polls reveal historically low support for the big two, so-called big two, with smaller parties up by 5 points. And this is a bit of positive news, as I said at the top of the show. People are showing that they're done with this, moving over to independents, grassroots parties, and the Greens and other smaller parties, Workers' Party of Britain as well. Are new on the scene, so throwing them into the mix as well. And again, that ties in with what I'm expecting to be a low turnout. Could perhaps be no higher than 60%. I know I said 60 to 65% in the early predictions video that I made. Let's just have a look at some of the comments as well. Yeah. People pretty much concurring with that. Lib Dem are up 2 points each. Something else came out suggesting that Lib Dem could get over 50 seats. I know I said I expected them to probably double or treble the number of MPs that they've got. Some people are predicting that they'll go even further than that. Let us know what you think about those predictions. Nemo5959, thanks a lot for joining us in the chat. You're quite right, the 2-child benefit cap is absolutely abhorrent. Starmer, again, doesn't want to make any progressive change on that either. That's going to burden so many families with more than 2 children. Just going to go through a couple of other bits on social media. Let's rush through these pretty quickly. Sorry, I focused a lot on that Channel 4 piece there. This is one of the other hot seats where it does look like the Greens are going to make a gain from Labour. That's Joe Bird, who's the leader for Birkenhead. That's on the... That's potentially one of the 5, at least 5 seats that I'm predicting that the Greens will win. A lot of support here in the comments. Someone says the 70-year-old dad has voted Labour all of his life and he's just informed me that he's voting Green. He's even going to put a poster up. I pointed out that the banners is the first one that I've noticed out and about. You're not seeing people putting up Vote Labour posters in the window. All of the best campaigners of obviously the left or been thrown out of the party since then. Starmer's massive purge on the left of the party course. Don't be mistaken, don't be misled, vote Joe Bird, MP for Birkenhead. Little poem in there. And they are currently projected to take the seat. As always, we'll keep up with the latest on this one. As I said, just another one quickly, while we're on about the Green Party, who I obviously said in my last video, I think, they're probably the only ones looking to bring serious, real change out of the current parliamentary parties. I know that Workers' Party of Britain, of course, do have that 1 seat in Rochdale. How things will turn out for them remains to be seen, but been impressed with what Adrian Ramsey's had to say on news appearances. This sets out
Starmer is on
really what it's all
about
about.
a majority. If he has a huge majority where he can continue to make U-turns as he has been on issues such as climate and public service funding, then he will continue to make those U-turns. Whereas if we have a greater diversity of voices in Parliament, including Greens as part of the political debate, we're part of the political debate in this election because broadcasters like yourselves are obliged to cover us during election time. If we are part of the political debate inside Parliament, Keir Starmer, other parties will be forced all the time to answer questions about why are they giving licences to new oil fields like Rosebank when we face a climate emergency? Why are they not putting the funding in that's needed for NHS and social care at a time when those services are severely overstretched?
Yeah, valid questions. Valid questions. I liked his cheeky remark about the fact that they're actually getting airtime just because it's an election, between elections and whatnot. Green Party appearances are normally very scarce, but as we point out a lot on the channel, the mainstream media fall over themselves to get the likes of Richard Tice and Nigel Farage on. And as I said, I've been impressed with himself and Carla Denyer in all of the media appearances. Where should we go to next? I think we'll head over to North Islington, as I mentioned. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. It's almost like they really, really don't want to win the seat. For all of the times that Starmer has tried to trash Corbyn, you'd think he'd have a real vested interest in trying to keep that a Labour seat and stop Corbyn from gaining it as an independent. And Mandelson's rushed in now and said that he's getting behind the Labour candidate there. That's going to be Paul Mason, who's from 200 miles away from North Islington. Apologies, I'm going to have to subject you to a clip from Peter Mandelson, so sick bags at the ready. Even just the way he talks actually kind of makes my skin crawl. And he's obviously had his fingers on the strings in the background of the Labour Party while all this has been going on.
I'm going on Saturday morning to Islington North in order to campaign for the Labour candidate against the independent Jeremy Corbyn. I'm doing that because what I think Jeremy Corbyn stands for, his idea...
Just, you're going to hear some absolute trash here, of course, from Mandelson. He's been on the record before as saying that he spent every day of his life trying to undermine Jeremy Corbyn. And at that point, he was referring to the run-up to the last election as well.
Ideology, what he's done to the Labour Party, the sort of defeat he took us down to in 2019.
That was Keir Starmer. That was Keir Starmer. Denial isn't just a river in Africa, Mandelson.
And the alternative that's offered by the Labour candidate is so stark. I want to go out there personally and back the Labour candidate and do everything I can to make sure Corbyn is defeated. So, yes.
I would imagine he is absolutely reviled in North Islington, this man. People have backed Jeremy Corbyn. The population of North Islington will certainly be aware of the actions that Peter Mandelson took against Jeremy Corbyn. They'll also certainly be aware that Paul Mason has been parachuted in. They're not stupid. Jeremy Corbyn's been a great MP for constituents in North Islington since the 1980s. And this is pure bullshit and hubris from Mandelson.
I do like what Starmer stands for in contrast. And yes, I do think he's on the what I call the realistic wing of the Labour Party, but I also like certain values. He has a decency, he knows what he wants to do, and I think that he has a...
Give over. How stupid does he think people are? And I can see from the chat that you're pretty much in agreement with my sentiments for this awful, awful person, which I can barely describe as a human being. Yeah. Absolutely vile creature, you're correct, Wolfpet. Odin Allfather, thanks a lot for joining us in the chat as well. It is like listening to Epstein telling you how horrid Father Christmas is, lest those obvious associations go unmentioned with some very nefarious characters indeed.
Compass. Starmer has a moral compass, not an ideological compass, and that's what I like.
Awful, awful. Yeah. Brief shout out to Howard Beckett, who shared that on Twitter earlier. I still call it Twitter. I will die on this hill. An endorsement from Mandelson to vote against Corbyn, who for 40 years has not been in the pockets of billionaires. Mandelson, who whilst MP for Hartlepool, mistook mushy peas for guacamole. Labour, the other Tory party, have to agree. Obviously, I'm sure you've all seen that picture before. I've been keeping my eye on Corbyn's campaign. Obviously, positively, it looks as though Mandelson is going to be sent packing, along with Paul Mason. Hundreds of people turned out to campaign for Corbyn over the weekend and over the week. His campaign on the whole has been going very well, so I'm sticking by my early prediction there. He's going to win that by quite a distance, I should imagine. Just quickly want to have a look at this article from the Canary. Shout out to the Canary. By Rachel Swindon, who's great. I suggest you follow her on social media as well if you don't already. And if you're talking about honesty and integrity like Mandelson was there, I just think this little bit sums it up particularly well. Keir Starmer started the week with the launch of his own manifesto with some off-the-charts dishonesty by claiming the Tories have built a Jeremy Corbyn-style manifesto that will, quote, load everything into the wheelbarrow without explaining how you pay for it. That is a manifesto that Starmer absolutely supported without so much of a grumble to anyone that mattered. Why didn't he raise his concerns at the time? Did he mention his hashtag FBPE pleasing Brexit policy? She will, in this article. Now, Starmer says he was certain Labour would lose the election but made no apology for backing Jeremy Corbyn at the time. Corbyn, no longer shackled by the change of the Labour Party machinery, was unequivocal in his response to the ridiculous opportunist Starmer accusing the Labour leader of rewriting history. He said, "Get over it and get on with it. He was in the shadow cabinet. He was at the Clause 5 meeting. Both of these meetings unanimously agreed the 2019 manifesto, and he was there." The thing is, Starmer wasn't completely wrong. We knew that we needed nothing short of a miracle to win in 2019, and we knew exactly why. We could go on for a while about the Brexit betrayal and so on and so forth. But I just think that that article from Rachel Swindon in the Canary sums it up pretty well. So do check out the Canary and Rachel Swindon's social media as well. Gonna have to fly through things this evening. Just one quick thing I want to go over.
Please welcome to the stage, leader of the Labour
Well, not that.
Party, Keir Starmer.
No rabbits, no...
This video was brought to my attention recently. It's from a representative of UNICEF who's been on the ground in Palestine. He's sort of describing the latest situation there, and I just want to bring you this quick update. Again, no confirmed advances on the peace talks. A lot of the media focus recently has been on potential peace talks between Russia and Ukraine also, but this is the latest in the humanitarian situation in Palestine.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza have had their home destroyed. I know we hear it all the time. Imagine that. So now we have tented cities. Why? Because in an instant, those decades and decades of work was turned to rubble. And in that instant, so many people, they lost loved ones. This tented city, this centre, is of orphans. Everyone here lost a mother or a father or both. At the same time, what they lost when their homes were missiled or bombed, what they lost was their home. They lost.
Yeah, sorry about that. Delaying coming in there. Just quickly want to point out the emotion in this man's voice. We're seeing this in increasing amounts from journalists, humanitarian representatives, UNICEF, etc. Just how devastated they are. Before I play the rest of the clip, just want to update you on a couple of statistics. All of the statistics concerning Israel's occupation of Palestine get increasingly shocking, and I just quickly want to point out 8% of the population has been killed or wounded in the conflict. This representative here is highlighting how many people have lost their homes. Around 80% of Palestinians have lost their homes as well. It's completely shocking, and that 8% of people killed and wounded. Imagine if 1 in 12 people, well, roughly work out to be in. It's utterly atrocious.
Their furniture, they lost their kitchen, they lost their photos, they lost their clothes, and in this intense heat, they lost their fans, they lost their refuge, they lost their sanctuary. And now, Lana and Ala have been kind enough to invite me into their tent. And yeah, it's hot. The heat here simply...
It's like 40 odd degrees out there as well. That is one thing piling on top of this humanitarian crisis. The body needs more food and water to be able, especially water, to be able to regulate the body temperature during such extreme heat. And that's just exacerbating the situation, making it so much worse. People are in such a desperate situation out there, it's hard to describe and put into words. My pal Foot, just want to quickly thank you for joining us in the chat. Hope you're well this evening. If this is your first time on My Left Eye, you're very welcome here. Thanks a lot for being here. And yeah, we're all getting right behind Joe Bird in Birkenhead, hoping the Green Party come out with a victory there. Just back to this clip now. Not too much long left on the clip.
Further increases that hardship on children. Take a moment, just try and imagine this moment, right? How hot Lana is here. It's hotter outside. Where else do you go in the coming months? So it's the heat, it's the risk of disease, it's the lack of water. Lana will sleep here tonight and there'll be bombardments. Imagine the sound and the force of a bombardment here. So children under attack from so many areas. It's so critical those people who have the power, who are looking at that ceasefire, feel this heat, feel this suffering, bring that into their decision making, because all of this surely must lead to a ceasefire.
We're hoping so. We really are hoping so. Obviously, I'll keep you up to speed with the latest on those ceasefire talks. Let's hope that some real progress can be made. And great report there from that UNICEF representative. Whew. Yeah. As I always say, you know, in the clips that I use regarding the occupation of Palestine, I do come across some very increasingly graphic things on social media that aren't suitable for these live streams. The reality of it, I'm sure, when you're there on the ground, is even worse. Just having to look at that on a screen often makes me feel very emotional and brings me close to being physically ill sometimes, to be honest. So I really can't imagine what it's like for these tremendous UNICEF and other humanitarian aid workers down there on the ground in the thick of it. Just quickly want to thank Phil McCracken. Thanks a lot for joining us on the stream tonight and for the 10 gifted memberships. That's an awesome way to show solidarity. Thank you so much for that. You can check out your perks by hitting the button, and of course you'll be added to the updated list of members here on the stream, which I'm about to give a huge shout out to. Thanks again, Phil, for that. Hope you're well this evening. Great to see you on the stream again. I'm going to be wrapping things up shortly. I started a little bit earlier than usual this evening. You can, of course, join me through the week on the Brews at 10. Those are the weekday live streams going out at 10 PM, as many evenings as I'm free to do so. So please hit the notification button and make sure that you don't miss out on those. I'll be posting on Twitter as well, with reminders if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, and in the community posts on YouTube as well. Keep an eye out for that. And yeah, thanks a lot for all of your support to all of our members, whether you're a new member or you've been with us for a while. You're all very welcome here this evening. As I said, I will be updating this list of excellent, awesome, lovely people who continue to support the channel and show solidarity. Okay guys, sorry, just had another bit of a problem with the mic, but I'll be back with more content as well. If you've not checked out the Green Party video focusing on their campaign as well, please do that. I'll be seeing you in the week on Brews at 10, of course, as I said earlier. That brings us towards the end of week 3 of the election campaign. We'll be seeing what's happening during week 4 and keeping our eye on those hot seats as well. Thanks a lot for all of your suggestions recently. I'm going to be checking those out as we expand that list with North Durham and Clacton also coming onto the list, as well as Birkenhead, which we focused on a little bit this evening. Thanks a lot for all of your suggestions even, as always. So I will leave it there for tonight's Sunday night live stream. Thanks a lot to all of you for joining us once again. Hope you have a great week. Hope you've had a great weekend. My Left Eye will be seeing you soon. Take care.